everyone. I'm Nancy Coulter-Parker, Director of Content Marketing with New Hope Network, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, Scaling Without Breaking the Supply Chain, How Growing Food and Beverage Brands Win in the U.S. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today's webinar is produced for you by New Hope Network and Source Logistics, who you can find at Natural Products Expo West at booth number N643. So before we begin today's conversation, this webinar is designed to be interactive. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll find a navigation center, and here you can submit questions for our speakers or download resources. So there are two resources that go along with today's discussion, and you can download those at any time during the presentation without interrupting your viewing. We will have a Q&A, and if time does not permit to answer all the questions, Source Logistics will follow up with answers after this webinar. So for today's topic, the U.S. consumer market is one of the fastest growing drivers of food and beverage demand in the world. Yet many brands have trouble scaling successfully in the U.S. Rising volumes, strict retail compliance, and cross-border execution can create bottlenecks if the supply chain isn't built to scale. So in today's webinar, we'll explore common scaling pitfalls, how to design supply chains that support retail readiness, and proven strategies for building resilient, compliant distribution networks that sustain growth in the U.S. market. So joining me today from Source Logistics to talk us through all of this is Raul Villarreal, CEO and co-founder of Source Logistics. Welcome, Raul.
Thank you.
So just to get us started, you're not only CEO, but you are a co-founder of Source Logistics. So could you please, just introduce us to Source Logistics, how it got started and your background that led you to start this company?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So really to talk a little bit about Source, the idea started about 27 years ago. We were on the other side of the equation. We were exporting goods, mainly from Mexico into the U.S. market. And the cultural gap, there was a clear cultural gap, and we set out, to bridge that cultural gap on logistics providers in the United States that were not fully understanding how these brands coming from abroad operate, and that's how everything started. We quickly turned from exporters of products to logistic solutions, helping these brands that we very much knew what they were suffering from. We started with a 20,000 square feet facility in Southern California. Now we have about 6 million and 25 facilities across our network. Very important. I mean, we remain very committed to support brands bringing products from abroad. So our network is strategically located in major ports like Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, California. We have operations in Laredo, Texas, Houston, Dallas, and New Jersey. Big operation in Chicago as well, as it is a huge distribution market. And all in all, we currently cover about 85% of the U.S. population within 1 day transportation rates, or with the same day, I should say, transportation rates. With our target is to expand to Florida, and with that, we will be able to reach out 95% of the U.S. population within the same day. Really provided similar services as most 3PLs out there: storage, in and out services, pallet in and out, value-added services, case pick, cross-dock, temperature control, you name it. But most importantly, we're a solution-based company. We understand what is your individual situation, what is your objective, what is your target, and based on that, we help the customer create a solution that it's tailored specifically to their needs. And so that's who we are. And thank you again for having me.
Well, yeah, you clearly have boots on the ground knowledge of what it's like to help companies, both enter the U.S. as well as scale in the U.S. If they already have operations here. And, it's great that you understand, all sides of the equation. In these scenarios, what mindset should international brands adopt initially when trying to scale up, and how should they think about setting up their operations?
Well, first of all, I would just say a lot of this conversation will be really with a lens of supply chain. So there's the whole conversation about go-to-market strategy and product development. So I'll be talking a lot about the supply chain piece of it. But the first thing I would say is companies need to think on where do they put their money, and as companies trying to make it into the United States, my first suggestion to anybody is that they invest in product development and commercial efforts, and really let the complex solutions around logistics to companies that are professionals. And it's about finding the right company to help you. But it's your best ROI will be in product development and commercial efforts, not supply chain solutions. Every story is different. We've seen throughout the years, we've seen companies that have significant, like a very well recognized brand in other countries, and they were trying to make it into the USA. We've seen really innovative products manufactured outside, they're bringing into the USA. Companies, large organizations trying to deploy a new product, or a smaller organization. So it really depends on your specific scenario, on how to go about it, and how to make your decisions on how to get into the market. But really, that situation is what dictates how to choose your supply chain. Again, if you're a very large organization with a product that is well recognized and you have economies of scale, you can penetrate a lot of the main retailers. Then you go out and find someone that can help you achieve that. If you are a small organization with a significant projection to sell and expand your product, you want to emphasize on someone that has the flexibility, the appetite to manage your business when it's small, but it partners with you to get you to the next level. So you don't want to start with a small partner and then having to change multiple times because you didn't choose well. Stay flexible. That's incredibly important in this world. And the proper supply chain partner will give you that. And lastly, the one thing I say is choosing the right supply chain solutions. It's really critical, and could be a differentiator versus the competition. It really is. I mean, supply chain before COVID, it was a word that nobody knew, and now everybody understands that really supply chain plays an important role in the value proposition of your product. If you have a great product, great brand, but poor supply chain process or capabilities, then you're not going to be in the market for long.
Well, and I know, I think it was in 2024, over 4,800 new international companies established operations in the United States. So, I mean, people are up against, and that's not including the companies that are already in the States. So there's this, fierce competition. As companies navigate these decisions and how to, get into the marketplace, can you talk through some of the most common challenges they might run into early on?
Sure. As you mentioned, when the brands come into the USA, you said something really important. The US market is huge, but there's a lot of people that wants to play in the market. So again, moving away from the commercial strategy, really making sure that you select you're in the right 3PL ecosystem, it's super important. It's very, very important. A lot of the companies, I mean, we've seen in the past that because they are well-known brands or powerful companies in their country of origin, they think that they will have the same muscle in the United States. That's not true. It is not true. Even though if we're talking about the same retailers, it's very different thing. And there's on the presentation that we put out for download, there's some additional information, but it is true that the food and beverage market, it's continually to grow, and it's I think my number is 6% CAGR in the last 26 years, which is significant. There's a lot coming on board, but you need to make sure that you have the 3PL resolve as you move forward. Otherwise, as you mentioned, the compliance requirements, cost to deliver, that will eat you up, and you will not be in business long.
I know we're going to get into that in a few minutes about the costs, but so building a brand in a new market while building a logistics infrastructure in-house just seems daunting to me. At what stage should a growing CPG or food and beverage brand seriously consider outsourcing logistics? And what are they underestimating when they think about building logistics in-house or calling those global third-party logistics companies or 3PLs?
Well, the first thing that I would say is you need to think. I mean, if you're trying to get into the U.S. market, I would think that most likely they're not. You want to scale. You want to be able to scale your brand. You're not getting into the U.S. market just to sell into a mom and pop store. So be ready to scale, because hitting one, I mean, you could be for 2 years selling to a local distributor, but then once you hit a big retailer, then your scaling conversation kicks in. And if you're not thinking about that from the beginning, you will be behind the race. The other thing is, when you decide about 3PLs and trying to make that decision, it's important. A lot of our customers, or new brands, they don't know who are the players out there. They do searches, and they tend to go with well-recognized brands, large organizations, large corporations. We have some customers that have great relationships with global logistics companies, but they might not be the right one in the United States. So ask all of those questions. Big is not necessarily good. You need to think about what do you need, and really be ready for unknown and uncharted territory. There's going to be a lot of things that you don't know. So flexibility and capabilities is extremely important. And I go back to the comment about where to invest. Again, I cannot say it enough. You really want to put your money on product development. You don't want to put your money on warehouse management system, transportation management systems, trucks. There's a huge infrastructure out there for you to tap into. You just need to spend the time to do it with the right ones. And we'll talk a little bit more about down the road.
So what are the characteristics of a strong 3PL partner? If you're not looking at the big guys, what would someone look for?
Wow. Well, the first thing I would say, and I'll say this because we've seen it throughout the years. We've been doing this for 27 years, and we've seen quite a bit. But one thing, and this is probably cultural situation, but companies believe, or there's still some of them, they have the sense that giving this to a 3PL, it's rendering control. And And that's not true. In really the best partners that we have, customers that we or brands that we represent, they have really strong logistics departments themselves, and they manage us. We are an extension to their logistics department, and we have the network and the capabilities for them to do a really good job.
Right.
And really, that's
partnership, right? Like that's what a partnership is.
that's what a partnership is. So that's my first thing I would say. You're not rendering control. You're actually expanding your capabilities. But it's a partnership. It's truly a partnership. It's not a one-way street. It's a collaboration. It's a collaboration effort. Um, there are really many 3PLs out there in the United States. A lot of them are really, really good. We're one of them. No, but there's local, regional, national, global. Really, when you're looking at the right 3PL, Nancy, is you want to make sure, obviously, that it's in the right location, provides the right visibility and systems, provides the right services that you need, that you're looking for, whether you're looking for an operation that it's highly high in case peak or value added services within the operation, a lot of repacking, display building, stuff like that. So first, look into organizations that can do that. Then I would say the next one, once you have a list of organizations, there's going to be probably plenty, but once you have that list, now think about who gives you the more flexibility. Flexibility is key. Because what you need today, I'm pretty sure in the United States market, is not going to be what you need in a year.
Right.
You need flexibility. You need to be able to move around. You need to be able to reassess your network every year or every 2 years and say, am I in the right places? Am I shipping out of the right distribution hubs, or do I need to make changes? Flexibility is key. And once you assess those two, then the other question is, can it support the scale? If you scale, is this partner will this partner be able to help you with scale? And finally, extremely important, is there a cultural fit?
Right.
And when I say cultural fit, is this 3PL, do they understand what you're looking for? Do they understand what are your objectives? Are they willing to partner up with you? So that's how I would start it. But answering your question, Nancy, I guess I can say a 3PL that fits your operational needs, a partner that aligns with your local approach, a team that understands your goals, partner who has done this before, and a partner that has agility. I didn't mention it, but systems nowadays is extremely important. A partner that has the proper system capabilities to connect with you, to be able to respond to labeling requirements, CDI requirements, all of that stuff that we'll talk in a few minutes about it. But yeah, I could go on and on this, but I'll stop there.
Well, and one thing you're not saying too is to choose on price, right? And so when we look at sort of this next level of prioritizing these most important factors and selecting a partner, why is it not about price, and why, where does that lead you if that's the only thing you're looking at? What problems what problems can come up there?
Sure. So, I mean, we've seen this on and on, and when selecting the proper 3PL, I mean, you need to evaluate every decision holistically, because it is really not about price, it's about cost. Cost to deliver. And within supply chain, as well as many other areas, but in supply chain, one decision that shows savings here might actually turn into additional cost in inbound transportation or I mean, there's plenty of things that you need to consider. So please consider those things. And when I add the concept of flexibility, that's when I say what it works today. Make sure that you're understanding, okay, what it works today, but you have flexibility. You're building flexibility to potentially something different in the next few months, years. Another element that we insist to our customers quite a bit is in the supply chain. So when we talk about the cost to distribute to manage the inventory and distribute goods in the United States, there's a generally agree rule of thumb that 70% of the cost is transportation and 30% of the cost is warehouse. So it's important that you focus on the 70% because that's your 70%. But guess what? The 30% is the most important decision because that's where you're locked in.
Mm.
That's where you have to make a commitment on the partnership with a warehouse, because changing warehouses is not easy.
Right.
Doing it right is not easy. Readjusting your transportation network, negotiating, I'm not saying that it's super easy, but you don't have to commit for long period of time. And we barely see relationships with our customers have only one carrier as a dedicated 3PL solution. There's always, specific by route or mode, whether it's truckload, LTL. So even though it's a 70-30 split, your most important decision is the 30%, because that's where you locked in and you're going to be committed. Yes.
So there's, and there seems to be all these hidden costs that pop up. Could you give some examples of just small mistakes that turn into expensive problems, or things, how do you avoid, falling into that sort of this cost trap that you may not understand? I'm thinking, it seems like there's everything from chargeback costs, there's every, sort of waste management, but then there's also customs, or just, it seems like there's a cost everywhere that people, you can get sideways fast.
And I think so. I can speak about this for hours. So I'm gonna say one thing really quickly, and then I'm gonna focus on compliance, because that's extremely important. But when I say flexibility, cultural fit, partnership, that's part of the reason why it's so important. Because when we talk about price or cost, you need to make sure that you can have those conversations with the 3PL and say, hey, I didn't know, or when you're negotiating, is really help me explain exactly what drives the cost. What are the transactions that I pay for it? What are the ones that I don't pay for it? And make it a win-win scenario. We've seen situations where customers really beat down the 3PL and they get a phenomenal deal. But then 6 months later, it turns out that the 3PL was willing to do that because they had excess capacity, and all of a sudden they have a new customer with better rates and they're kicked out. You have to engage in a win-win scenario. That's one thing that I would say, and that's a trap that we see constantly with customers calling in and say we need help because we made a bad decision a few months ago. Then switching gears to the other thing is compliance, and probably for those that are experts, they know much too well on what compliance or lack of could mean to the bottom line. Retailers are out there, and they're the number, it's astronomical. So finding that partner that helps you manage that compliance, that has the system and the system and the network capabilities to help you minimize those compliance issues, it's super important. I say some examples. I mean, there's obviously in food and beverage, we manage lot control, expiration dates, all of that. But think about it, there's certain retailers that are okay if they receive the product with 90 days shelf life. But there's others that require 180 days. There's others that require 270 days. They're all different. And so you need a partner that can help you manage that systematically and effectively. So if an order comes in for retail number one, the system knows what are the parameters for that customer, so we don't ship product with out of sequence or out of code for that retailer. So that could turn to a lot of cost.
And then you have essential chargeback costs, on top of, depending on the infraction, right? So you've got, it seems like there's something coming at you from every angle.
That's right.
Or if you're out of, the lost sales from stockouts, like it just, so so for someone to try and manage that, as you said, to build up this infrastructure and be managing this, I think, again, someone can get sideways pretty fast. Or even, obviously, you're dealing with international companies, and so there's this U.S. customers, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, they also have fines. So it's, so in that sense, I guess even for you, what would be considerations for that? How do you build a strategy for someone, and what kind of time frame are you looking at for building that as well? So it's not just like, it can't just be 6 months. It's got to be, you have to have a long-term strategy when you're working with people.
Goes back with finding the partner with the right capabilities, flexibility, and infrastructure.
Right.
Compliance is a real thing. And we have customers that they have full departments only dedicated to fight claims.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Full departments. So that's a real thing, and that's something that you need to consider within your strategy. But managing that is extremely important, and minimizing the impact of that, or at least having some level of control. It's super important. So that's when I say the best price is normally not the best decision. It's a combination of everything. Otherwise, you might pay a few dollars less to handle a pallet, but you will pay hundreds of thousands of dollars on compliance issues, and then lose the customer. So goes back to making sure that you have the right partner. A couple of things that I will mention is and I cannot stress enough, win-win relationships are the way to go. If your 3PL is not in a healthy, profitable relationship with you, or vice versa, there's no long-term expectation.
Right.
You don't want to be there. You really don't want to be there. And
you don't want to be worried about having to switch, partners either. Getting things going, switching gears, that's not going to help. It's kind of like you said about the warehouses, right? Like that's going to take away from the business.
That's exactly right. And we've seen it multiple times. It comes at the worst time, because they've been having issues, and all of a sudden they're approved by Target or Costco. Now it's like crunch time, and they're not with the right partner, and they're behind the race.
Right. So I guess there's a couple of things. One is, how can businesses lean on logistics partners, to help them grow and thrive? You've got, just again, we talked about how large this market is, and I'd love to hear if you had to give some advice to a company looking to launch a new product or expand, from international into the U.S. What would it be?
I think trying to really, I would say the same things I've said through the conversation. do not self-operate. Let leverage the 3PL expertise is the right way to do. Sometimes it feels like a huge overtake because you're small, and that's a big expense. But learn to leverage the 3PL expertise from the beginning is very important. Make sure you have a solid go-to-market strategy, and this is the only comment I will make about commercial. You really want to understand what is your market strategy. Build for compliance and do proper due diligence when you're deciding on who your partners will be. Uh, we've said it multiple times, but focus on total cost, not just price. Avoiding short-term traps, and think long-term relationships, compliance, flexibility, and alignment.
Great. Well, we're just gonna do a quick Q&A. If one question is, how do we know when we've outgrown our current 3PL?
Well, one indicator will be you starting to have more trouble. I mean, if you have your internal logistics department, it could be one person, but you kind of know, and you always have like, yes, we can do it. Yes, we can unload the trucks. Yes, we can ship the spike of the mountain push. When you start getting no as an answer, that's a possibility. Inventory accuracies, it's another really important one. If you start seeing issues with inventory management out of code, or simply issues with inventory, that's another very important one. And the last one I would say is network. If you're with a local 3PL and you're selling your products locally, you're great. But a good indicator is if you're about to engage with a national brand, a retailer, you probably outgrown your local 3PL.
Okay. And one, something you mentioned earlier, you've mentioned the warehouse and the transportation. Just are people thinking about the role that technology plays in this? Because that's something you mentioned. You are more technology, that you have that infrastructure, your technology first.
Yeah, I keep telling customers and my team is we're a technology company that happens to do logistic services, and the answer is yes. The box, the warehouse, it's the same for everybody. Some are cleaner, some are taller, but at the end of the day, nowadays it's about systems, visibility, data, actionable data. So all of that comes with interfaces, not only between our customer service systems and ourselves, to receive product, to ship product, to confirm shipments, all of that stuff, but really to support our customers when connecting to Target and Walmart and Costco and all of those. All of that is technology based. Whoever is at the top on technology will have a few steps ahead from others.
Okay. And does Source Logistics offer domestic LTL and truckload rates once the product is in your warehouse facilities?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. We out of any of our facility, we provide truckload and LTL, and actually small package. All of our facilities are equipped to handle big box distribution, as we call it, for shipments to business to business. But we also have capabilities to do business to consumer, business direct to consumer within any of our locations.
And should early stage brands work with regional 3PLs or national providers?
Depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you have expectations for quick growth, maybe a national provider that offers the flexibility and the capabilities is better. Maybe paying a little bit more upfront, but you're going to avoid a painful transition in the next few months or years. If your line of sight is lower growth, then I would say choose the one that fits your needs now, but know that most likely you're going to have to switch at some point.
Right. That's sort of, as you said, come in preparing to scale, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Well, thank you so much. That's, all we have time for today, but where can we find more information?
Well, thank you for having me today. It was an honor. And you can find us online at sourcelogistics.com or visit us next week at the Expo West, booth number N643.
Fantastic. We will look for you there. I encourage everyone to visit Source Logistics at Expo West. And as Raul said, N643 is the booth number. Thank you, Raul Villarreal, CEO of Source Logistics, for today's insightful conversation. This content will be available on demand after this event within the next 24 hours, and you can use the same login you used today to access this webinar. Thanks again for joining us today, to our audience, and have a wonderful remainder of your day.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, everybody. And good luck out there.